Hello and welcome to the Blessings in the Streets podcast. I am your host, Joseph B. Roberts, and in studio with me this evening is a phenomenal woman that I recently had the chance to connect with across social media lines. She is a very busy woman. She's a model, author, actress, media personality, speaker, podcast, TV, radio host, CEO of The Weight We Carry, and that's just getting started with what she's doing. God has her hands in a lot of different works, and she's doing it in a big and bold type of way. But she's taken out a time out of her very busy schedule, this woman of God, to share a little bit of her journey, a little bit of her story with the hopes of inspiring, encouraging, and uplifting others as we deal with our respective challenges and overcoming of storms in life. So it is my privilege and honor, ladies and gentlemen, to introduce to you this evening our very special guest, Miss Tammy Taylor. Tammy, thank you so much for being on the show.
Thank you so much for having me. Thank you.
Absolutely, absolutely. So before we jump into our segments, I do want to give you an opportunity to share a little bit about yourself, who you are, where you're from, what you do. Give our audience a taste of who is Tammy Taylor.
Okay, well, I am Tammy Taylor. I'm from Atlanta, Georgia. I was a military brat. My father was in the army, so we traveled a lot with him when I was as a child, all the way from the time I was born all the way up until I graduated from high school. We traveled all over the world, so I was never in one place for too long. Um, yeah, I went to college here. Oh goodness. I started I started modeling when I was a teenager. And then I stopped and then I didn't start back modeling until I was in my 40s. So yeah. So
Wow.
yeah. Yes, yes. And I did it as a hobby because my kids were growing and out the house and I was bored and didn't have anything to do. That's how it started. That is how it started, and it's been wow. It's been an amazing journey. But yeah, so my mom and dad, again, they were always there. My mom was had the opportunity to be a stay-at-home mom, so she was always there, encouraging. And again, like I said, my dad was in the military, so we were always. I've seen so many different places. I was blessed to be able to see so many different countries, so many different cultures. Didn't appreciate it when I was a child because every time I made friends, we had to move. So I didn't like it as a kid, but I grew to appreciate it as I became an adult because I'm so familiar with so many things that others, they never got a chance to see. And I got to see it and experience it as a child. So, yeah.
That's awesome. That is awesome.
Hmm.
And for those who tune in who don't know about the modeling side of your career, if they ever had an opportunity to check any of your about your page and some of the videos that you've done, I mean, you're doing your thing. I mean,
Thank
and
you.
that's got to be pretty cool to like you said, after being away from it for a while and then jumping back in it the way that you have,
Hmm.
and just being just really stylish with the just with the whether it's the various hairstyles or the or just the the fashion that you're displaying, and of course being in your case, we're going to say being a curvy woman, doing
Yes.
this, because a lot of times, as you know, the stereotypes of what a perfect model is
Hmm.
supposed to look like, and you're breaking that mold and saying, we're not going to
No,
go by what the industry or the worldly standard suggests. We can look good on the modeling, runway in all different types of shapes and sizes. It's just about the
exactly.
attitude and how you put it together. So it's clear that that confidence is there, and and of course you've accrued a number of different accolades that I've researched and seen. So I'm like, okay, so she is more than a hobby for you. Just kind of like a
It
kind of a
is.
natural for you. It's kind of
Yeah.
natural to you, and like I said, and
Yeah.
I'm sure that for not only for yourself but for other women who are checking
Hmm.
out what you do, that's got to be a big encouragement booster for them and feel like, okay, if she can love be comfortable in her own skin and not again allow the world to dictate what is the perfect size or shape or whatever, then hey, what says that I can't be the same way and be bold in everything that I do in life. So that's good
Hmm.
stuff. Good stuff.
Yeah, yeah, God has allowed me to take my modeling from a hobby to a ministry
Mm-hmm.
because that is, yeah, it is. It's actually a ministry. And there was a time when I was gonna stop doing it. And then someone said, but modeling is your ministry.
Mm-hmm.
Women look up to you, women look at you and feel like they can do anything. And
Mm-hmm.
one actually came up to me after a fashion show one time, and she said that she was going to go back to nursing school because she saw me on the runway. Because I'm 54 years old also, so I'm 54 years old, and I'm a curvy model or a plus size model or a full figure model, and we need to be represented. Every aspect of fashion, every aspect of woman needs to be represented in fashion because we all buy clothes, we all wear them, and we all like to look nice in them. And so I really do appreciate all the opportunities that I've been able to, that have been afforded to me. And now I'm in a position to give opportunities to others. So
Mm-hmm.
so it's really been a blessing. It literally went from something I was just wanted to do because I didn't had the opportunity and I was bored to something now that's way more than me. It's more than me now. So.
Mm-hmm. And that's interesting that you say that because it's that's kind of how God moves in some instances where He can take something that you take as as being just a casual, just I'm a bored type of thing, and you have no idea that what He's setting you up for is, as you spoke to, that this was going to move from
Hmm.
just a hobby or just something fun to do every now and then to you ministering to
Yeah.
people. And a lot of times we don't typically associate modeling with ministry, but in your case, you are a perfect example of that. I mean, and that's in the title of your business that you have, and that's why I thought it was appropriate to associate the title even with your episode this evening. The
Hmm.
weight we carry, because this is not just about quote unquote the physical weight, but we're gonna
Exactly.
it's about the weight of life, emotionally, mentally, even
Hmm.
spiritually. All of those things play a role, which is why when you just gave the example about you connected with a woman that you didn't know you were going to connect with her in that way. She's coming to see a show, you inspire her to go back to school. It's so those things
Yeah.
play out like that, but they only play out like that when you're walking, truly walking in your purpose, and not just walking
Hmm.
the runway.
Right.
It's bigger than the runway. And so
Right.
it's awesome to hear God using you in that capacity, taking something enjoyable and fun that you like to do, but leveling it up in a way that only He can, where you actually can connect with some women. You can inspire some women, you can encourage them and make them feel a confidence that perhaps they didn't have until they saw you be bold in your confidence and what you're doing. And so that is truly a blessing. And I'm it brings me happiness to hear stories like this and to see you
Hmm.
enjoying
Hmm.
what you're doing, and again being unapologetic about it. So
Yeah.
that's good. That's good.
Yeah. God
So
is amazing. Yeah. I
yes.
never thought this.
Right.
God is amazing.
You say, yeah, yeah, He is amazing, and He will take what the simplest of things, and He'll
Hmm.
make it big, make it
Hmm.
impactful, and that's what He's doing with you.
Hmm.
So that's good stuff. So Tammy, again, whenever I have people on the show, and you started to tap into this a little bit, but I like to take moments out to reflect on one story by kind of going back to the beginning, to the earlier days in life, because
Hmm.
even going back as far as childhood, there are encounters that we have, people that we meet, and we don't always make the connection as to why these things happen, or why these people enter into our lives. But you put some years on your life, and you get those experiences behind you, and ultimately, when you find out what your purpose in life is, you begin to sort of connect the dots. The lights start to come on, and you start to make the connections. Okay, this is why I had to go through what I went through. This is why I
Yes.
encountered the experiences that I encountered, and it begins to make sense. And so, with that said, I would like to dig a little bit deeper into
Hmm.
what it was like for you growing up. Some of the fond memories. I know you shared about being a military kid, just bouncing around. I can only imagine, like as you kind of alluded to, the challenges in establishing friendships, and just even understanding where did your first that first spark of even wanting to model in the earlier days, that where did that encouragement come from, that desire to do things like that. Kind of delve into what was it like a little bit more as to what it was like for you growing up. I'm interested to know that, and of course my listeners are, just kind of get a fuller scope of what is the backdrop of your story begins at. Kind of tell us a little bit more about that.
Okay. So like I said, my mother was the one that got me into the modeling
Mm-hmm.
as a teen. I was like 15, 16. I did a couple of shows and then I was pretty much I just did it again because it was fun. and but I never thought or pursued anything with it. And then, again, with the traveling and the moving, it was kind of hard. And that's the only thing that I think had a little bit to do with things that happened in the future as far as me connecting with people. But because you don't want to connect because you're gonna leave, and you, as a kid, and you
Hmm.
make these best friends, you know, and then all of a sudden, boom, you're in a whole nother country and you're never going to see them again. And then when I look again at my adult years, I have people who had the same friends for 20, 30 years. I can't say that because,
Hmm.
but, the military, my father took good care of us. It afforded us a wonderful life. I love my parents. I don't have any ill feelings toward them. But then also with that, as an adult, a lot of things I'm seeing that affected me. A lot of things because we did like that, we didn't have a church home.
Hmm.
We didn't go to church. My parents loved the Lord, but we weren't active in a church, because we were always so those are the things that I felt were a disconnect. Now, as an adult, I didn't realize it then as a child, but I see now how certain things, my way of thinking and certain things could have possibly been affected by that. Not again, I had a very loving household, a very loving household. We, yeah, we did things together. It was just we always knew that we couldn't get comfortable.
Hmm. Gotcha.
We couldn't get comfortable because we knew, and then you're in school on the military basis, so all the kids had the same situation. So, and then there's sometimes you'll go to school as a new person, and then you're always the new person. Like when you move, you don't move at the end of the year. You move and you have to start school in the middle of the year. So,
Mm.
so yeah. So I mean, having to do that every couple of years, um, and knowing that you can't really you just can't get attached to people. That was something I was longing for. So I tended to be attached to people. Like as once I became an adult, I tended to just attach myself to people who were nice to me, which then took me down a whole other road. So
Hmm.
um yeah, it took me down a whole other path because I would attach myself just to be attached to somebody, and it was not always a good fit for me, so to say.
Gotcha.
Yeah, so
That makes sense. That makes
yeah.
sense. And again, it ties back into the title of our show this evening. I can only imagine the mental and the emotional weight of not being able to have that stability. I mean, yes, you had a
Hmm.
solid foundation in terms of a good home environment, but because
You're
you are
right.
constantly moving, it becomes hard to establish those relationships. There's that part of you that wants to connect with people, but then because you don't know the certainty of how long that's going to last, you can be torn as to, I don't want to get too close to you. I don't want to get too
Hmm.
attached to you because
Hmm.
the minute I do, and then my parents announce that it's time to move to another country, then
Right.
now I don't see you again, and I have to start over,
Not
constantly
over
having to start
again.
over, and that could, for a kid, that could be a big roller coaster ride. Yeah, it might be cool,
Hmm.
like you said, to see different parts of the world, that aspect of it, but people still need to have
Right.
those friendships, those connections, even if it's just a couple of people. And when you don't get
Hmm.
a chance to have that, or you can only have it in little snippets and parts, that can be, that
It
can
is.
wear on you over time. And so
Hmm.
as a kid, you're carrying this mental weight, trying to keep it all together, trying to be a good sport about it, but not really having control. You have to go where you have to go because they say
Right.
pack up, it's time to go. You got to roll with that. But I'm
Yeah.
sure it didn't always feel good, and it probably was at times confusing, and you wish things were different. I hope they don't ask us to move anytime soon. I just want to
Right.
stay in one place for some period of
Hmm.
time. So not being able to have that I can imagine that can be a troubling thing. And so I appreciate you sharing that because again, maybe people who are tuning in who had a similar lifestyle growing up in a military household, or if it wasn't a military household, sometimes people have a parent or two that just works a job that constantly has
And
them
then have them moving. Right.
relocating. And so
Hmm.
again, same scenario, you're just kind of bouncing around and you never really get to establish any roots, and that can kind of keep you all over the place. So as you alluded to, by the time you do get to a point where you're no longer subject to having to bounce around, the impact of what happened in those earlier years causes you to perhaps maybe get a little clingy or a little bit attached. Okay, I finally got somebody that I can hang on to,
Hmm.
and you might kind of lose sight in the process of that. Maybe lose sight of the selectiveness process. Making sure that
Exactly.
I just don't attach because this seems to be they're not going anywhere. But if they're not good for me, then that might be a whole different thing that I'm opening up that could lead me down a path of of problems that I don't need to have in my life. So
Exactly.
I
Exactly.
can
Yeah,
understand
exactly.
where you're going with that. One other thing that I'm curious about too, I know you said that modeling was something that kind of in high school your mom kind of connected you with that, and you did some some shows here and there. As far as your participation in that, were you from a physical perspective, were you always a curvy girl, or was it something that at that time you were you were
I
much more
was
slimmer or in that time, or was that what was that like?
I was tall and slim.
Okay.
Yeah, so they were happy to have me as a model
Mm.
because I was tall and slim.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I actually was tall and slim all the way through high school. Yep. So I didn't begin to get curvy until after I graduated from high school and went into college. But
Hmm.
yeah, so I have been everybody type actually.
Okay.
Yeah, I
He
have.
said, I've been all of them.
I've been all of them. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. You missed those. I know I missed those days. I used to be thin. I used to be thin when I was in high school and all. And then one day things just started to shift into a whole
Yeah.
new body dimension. But you know,
Right.
we carrying it as best as we
What
can.
we can. We work with what we got.
We working with what we
Exactly. What
got.
we got.
Uh, okay. Okay. Yeah, I was just kind of curious if that was something that you
Hmm.
kind of were one size at this point and then later, because again, I think
Hmm.
it's interesting that if I started out in modeling and I was again the quote unquote ideal prototype, tall and slim, and then years later you get back into it, but now I'm still tall, but now I'm curvy, and
Right.
being able to step into it the way that you do.
Hmm.
I think that's pretty cool and interesting that, that, hey, that the same boldness and confidence that you have now to do it, kind of aligns with, hey, I was doing it when I was thin and tall, and I'm doing it,
Doing it
when
now.
I'm curvy and tall. I'm not, nothing's missing. I'm not skipping a beat on this. It's just a different version of me, but it's still me. And
Right.
so I like that. Okay, I was just kind of curious about
Hmm.
that.
Hmm.
So Tammy, of course, obviously you had a pretty, for the most part, you had a pretty awesome childhood. Aside from, like you said, having to bounce around and things like
Hmm.
that, and I'm sure, as you know, we enter into adulthood, and you finally break free of this whole thing of having to move around and everything, and more experiences come, more contact with people come, some good, some challenging, but
Hmm.
as I always say, you live long enough, there's going to come a point in time in life where you find yourself up against challenges or storms that hit a little different. They hit in a way, when I say different, they hit in a way where when you're in that moment, you might feel a sense of helplessness, a sense of hopelessness, feeling like, how am I going to get through this? This is a little bit heavier, a little bit. This weight that I'm being asked to carry is a weight that I'm not sure I can sustain. This is something that I'm not sure that I can bear. But here I am, me and this storm facing off, one on one against each other, and I don't know what to do with it. Um, so with that said, if you would tell me about a time that's exactly how you felt, that you were in that type of moment, in that type of situation, not seeing a way through, not seeing a way out, but obviously you're here today, so we can trust that God worked that thing out. But maybe back then you had your doubts, you had your fears, you had your worries. What was that situation like for you, and what was ultimately the turning point when you began to see some light at the end of the tunnel and coming out of that situation?
Okay. So, again, once I graduated from high school and we got settled in and everything, um, I, I ended up with a guy who was much, much older than me. And that relationship um, ended up being very abusive.
Mm-hmm.
It was a very abusive relationship, and the reason why remained, oh well, one of the reasons, and I really am just learning a lot about this in the past few years. The reason why I stayed as long as I did and things like that is because, my mother and father, they were together, I mean, I was raised in a two-parent household, and I just felt like that's how my life was supposed to be. I was so in love with this man, and I thought that was my fairy tale life. And the fact that it wasn't working the way I thought it would, I took that upon myself, and I felt like I was a failure, and I did not want it to fail. So, but in this relationship, I mean, it was very physical abuse, mental abuse, almost to the point where I almost died. I was left for dead. I'm here now because he thought he killed me. So it was a very hard, trying time for me. And it was to the point where I felt like that's all that I deserved to a point.
Mm.
And I got that way again because I was so starved for the attachment. And this man, again, he was much older than me, so he was able to manipulate that. And because of that, because I told him everything, he was able to take what I told him and use it against me. So again, I stayed with the abuse, and um, he almost killed me. And um, I left, but then I came back because I felt like I could fix it.
Mm.
Because I felt like I kept saying everything was my fault. I felt like I could fix it. So, what happened, what made me finally leave that relationship is I became pregnant with my daughter. And I became pregnant with my daughter, and that something clicked in me, and it was like, I cannot allow my daughter, my baby, to be in this type of environment. So that's when I finally left that relationship. But when I left the relationship, I still had the same mentality. I still felt like I didn't deserve. I felt like that's what I deserved. So I kept gravitating to these poor relationships. And the way it was to the point where if he's not hitting me, because the bar is already set so low. So if he's not hitting me, then this is a relationship that I could be in. And instead of me trying to heal myself, I would go into relationship after relationship after relationship. And all of these relationships were either mentally abusive, they were toxic, they were horrible relationships, and they took the toll they took on me. Is I found out and I realized that my identity was attached to each of these men that I was with. So every time something did not work out, it's almost like something just pulled away from me, like something,
Mm-hmm.
a piece of me was gone, gone. And this went on for 30 years.
Hmm.
I just, so I literally just was to the point where I would go and I would do a fashion show or be on a runway. People in the room would tell me how beautiful I was, and I would come home and cry because I would look in the mirror and I just did not like what I saw
Hmm.
because I didn't see myself the way God saw me. I saw myself the way these men saw me, or way I felt these men saw me, because that's where my identity was. My identity wasn't with the Lord. My identity was with these men. And again, every time something happened, or every time one left me or had to leave, it was another failure as far as
Mm-hmm.
I was concerned. And it just got to the point. It really got to the point where I could not take it anymore. And I literally cried to God and asked God, why doesn't anybody love me? Like, why? Like, I see people that are in these relationships, people love them. My mom and my dad, they loved each other. They were together for 30 something years. What is wrong with me? And God was, I was like, why doesn't anybody love me? God told me he loved me.
Wow. Um, Let me first start off by saying I appreciate your vulnerability and sharing uh, something like this, even now that you've grown from this. It still can't be easy to discuss, but this is definitely something that needs to be discussed because you're not alone in, and this applies to both, women and men.
Mm-hmm.
Not
Exactly.
alone in that whole identity piece. It's a few things that I took away from what you were saying. Again, we kind of go back to how things were like growing up. No fault to the parents. It was just the situation.
Mhm.
You're attracted. You're thriving for this need to be attached to someone, feeling like I just need to be with somebody that's not going anywhere, and I'm willing to gravitate to that regardless of the cost. And so,
Mhm.
like you said, you begin to establish this lowering the bar, so to speak, moment, to where as you enter into that and then begin to repeat it, relationship after relationship after relationship, it just kind of begins to be the norm. And
Mhm.
so you lose sight of yourself because, as you stated, I'm putting my identity in this case, I'm putting my identity in men. It's like
Mhm.
whatever they say I am, then that must be what I am. And when it doesn't work out the way I hope that it would in terms of the relationship lasting, then I immediately blame myself for it must be something wrong with me.
Mhm.
Instead of perhaps that maybe it was something wrong with
Wrong
them,
with
that
them.
it wasn't okay that they put their hands on you, that it wasn't okay that they were emotionally or mentally abusive, but that somehow it was my fault. So I think that part is interesting to point out. And then we have the other part of the when we get in total transparency. I've been guilty of this in different relationships about the whole the savior mentality that I'm going to fix you. If I stay with them, I know that this is not a good fit for me. I know it's not a good fit, but maybe if they just, because of who I am, because of the way I am, I'm a nice person, I'm a caring, I'm a thoughtful person, just them being around me, I could fix them. I could, whatever's troubling them, I can make that go away. I can make it better. And then you find yourself in situations where you're actually, you're actually not helping them, and you're making
Right.
life even more harsh on yourself. So when we talk about
Mhm.
that weight we carry, sometimes the weight we carry is because of circumstances that are beyond our control. But then sometimes that weight we carry is heavy because we're lifting something we don't have any business lifting.
Right.
It wasn't your place in your scenario to fix these various men that you had relationship with, regardless of, you might have thought that they were good people deep down inside, and there may have been some truth to that, but it wasn't for you to step in
Mhm.
to correct them, to get them
Right.
right, to fix them.
Right.
Anytime that you have to, in order to be a good influence or a good impact on somebody, and I hope to, again, to our listeners that are tuning in, if my part in doing that requires me to take low, to be viewed as worthless, or be treated in the ways that you described, then that's not that's not for
That's not
me
it. That's not.
to take that. That's not a part of the plan. That's not how that's supposed to work. That's not to say that it's easy to connect with people who are troubled and going through stuff, but not if it means you having to, again, to sacrifice who you are, and just strip yourself of boundaries, strip yourself of worth, strip yourself of value, strip yourself of deserving, of being treated in a certain kind of way. If you got to do all that just to try to help somebody, we're not even talking about for them to reciprocate, then that's
Right.
that's probably not a good fit. But again, if that's been my pattern until I break from that, then I'm going to continue to repeat the cycle. And there's even some instances where you can allow yourself to go through these, toxic situations, and you may even actually come across a good guy, or you might come across a good woman that um, you can't even fully benefit from that because you haven't allowed yourself time to heal. It's
That
like
happens.
I can't I have a problem being by myself. I'm not used to the stability. I'm not used to having that stability, and so the minute I don't have it, I gotta attach to something else, because I can't go too long again, because that doesn't feel good to me. And even if it means me taking low, even if it means me settling, at least I got somebody. And how often do we hear that?
Yep.
I'd rather, yeah, this may not be the best, but I'd rather, at least I'm not by myself. Well, at
Right.
what cost? Because in your situation, as you stated, you,
It
in that
almost
very
cost me
first
my life.
relationship, it almost cost you your life. So then you go, was
Exactly.
was that really? when you think about it, fast forwarding to today, you say, you know what, single didn't look too bad in replacement of no longer being here. you
Right, right,
know,
exactly.
you know that one too.
Exactly.
Maybe I didn't need to be connected that badly. At least for
Right.
even if it was just for a season,
Mm-hmm.
that would have been much better than me potentially, like you said, being in a situation where I literally almost lost my life. And as you stated in your scenario, he thought he had already done the job.
Mm-hmm.
Now that's a whole nother angle. That's just God's favor to create the scenario
Yes.
where, despite what you went through, this is not going to take you out. But you
Mm-hmm.
know, and I know sometimes our listeners, hear stories like these, and they'll say, well, you keep bringing up God. Well, if this God is so great and so awesome, why would he allow this beautiful woman to go through all of this and be mistreated and abused and all of that? Well, it's not about him forsaking you. It's not about him thinking less of you or thinking that you don't have the value or the worth
Mm-hmm.
that you were struggling to see in yourself. Um,
Mm-hmm.
but sometimes God has to let us break us down to a point to where we have nobody else to cry out to, and you literally said it. It wasn't until I cried out to him. Now, because he's seeing you and he's knowing what you're going through and he knows it doesn't feel good, but I gotta let it get to a point to where, my stepdad used to say this to me anytime when I would have conversations with him about, actually about relationships. I'm like,
Mm-hmm.
I'm sick of this. I'm sick of this. I'll be complaining about something. He's like, no, you're not. Because if you continue to go through that cycle, then you clearly you're not sick of it. You're not tired of it just yet. You have to make that decision that, when you truly are there, then it's going to be without a doubt evident that you are finally ready to just cut that thing off and go into a different shift, a different direction, a different mindset. And that's the moment that you had. It was like,
Mm-hmm.
I had
Yeah.
all these relationships, all this craziness. I'm done. And it was that he didn't let you get so far gone to where there was no return, but he got you to a point where you had no choice but to cry out to him. And when you did, he was right there and he gave you just simple advice, simple words to just remind you that I'm here for you. You are worthy,
Yes.
you are valuable,
Yes.
and that was game changing for you.
It was
Now, because
my
you
whole
wouldn't be able
life.
to, yeah, you wouldn't be able to do what you do. And I'm not just talking about the modeling. Again,
Mm-mm.
we talked about at the top of the show. You speak, you
Mm-hmm.
empower, you coach, you inspire, you uplift. You couldn't do none of those things. You not on your own strength. You have to have something that you got delivered from. You had to be in that space in order to be relatable for what God was setting you up for. And so
Yep.
that's why I tell people all the time, and it was something that I had to learn that, a lot of what we go through, it's not even about us. I had to take you through it because there's a platform that God had for you to be on, multiple platforms that He had for you to be on, multiple stages that He had for you to be on that you didn't know about. But I had to take you through this first so that when you get onto those stages and onto those platforms, whether it was in a modeling
Yeah.
mode, whether it's in a speaking mode, whether it's in a motivational mode, whatever that mode was, you're going to be able to connect with the people that he's already divinely set up that needed to hear your voice, needed to hear your story, needed to connect with you so that they can be empowered. But part of that journey sometimes means you got to go through some stuff.
Right.
I got to take you through so you can be ready for that. So
Yep.
it comes off authentic and genuine. You can come from a place where people connect with you and say, okay, that's why that woman was able to
Mm-hmm.
come up with you and say, you strolling down here in your nice outfit made me go back to school. On paper, that doesn't make sense. How does my strolling down the runway make you decide to go back to school? But clearly there was something about you, your energy, your aura, your vibe, that was more than just the outfit that you wore or the way that you strolled down the runway. You
Mm-hmm.
gave that confidence. It was dripping off of you. And that's God's favor in you that allows you to be able to connect that way, even when you didn't even say a word. You just walked in the presence of people and were able to connect and able to impact. And that's a big deal. And that's what I want our listeners to understand, that's not just an accidental moment. That's a divine setup
Yep.
for you
Yep.
to be in position to do that. So again, I
Mm-hmm.
appreciate you sharing this because this is
Mm-hmm.
such, it's important to talk about it from, that, reminding people that abuse is not okay and all of those things. We're not
Mm-hmm.
trying to water that down, but we also want people to
Mm-hmm.
see the bigger picture.
Right.
As to why does God allow us to go through some of the
Mm-hmm.
challenges and storms that we go through? Well, because it's for a higher purpose, it's for a bigger
Yep.
purpose, and
Mm-hmm.
sometimes He has to break us down to that point to get our attention, to get us locked
Right.
in on Him instead of us trying to fix everybody else, instead of trying to fix ourselves. Let's turn it over to
Right.
him. He's capable of doing all of that. He can fix you. He can fix all the toxic ones in the past. He can do all of that. But we have to stay in our lane. We got to keep our hearts and minds open and let him do what he do. And we operate in obedience and follow the steps that he tells us to
Ooh.
follow. So that's kind of what it
Ooh.
comes down to. And so
You
um,
saying everything. You're saying everything that I speak about. Like, yeah.
yeah, because again, I feel as you were telling your story, I'm feeling you. I'm
Mm-hmm.
connecting. Not to say that I understand what you went through, because I can't begin to say that. I
Right.
would dare not
Right.
say that. But
Right.
I relate to you. You're relatable, and I see the bigger picture here. I see how God
Mm-hmm.
is working through you. And I
Mm-hmm.
told you before we started the show, at the top of the show, to our listeners don't know, but we've been having some connection issues trying to get that date. Some would always come
Yeah.
up, and I told you, I
Something.
said
Yeah.
this was happening because you had a powerful story to tell. The enemy doesn't want you to tell this story, and so I
Right.
get even despite the inconveniences that we might have incurred, I get excited about shows like this because I know there's something in here
There's
that
something here.
that he's trying to stop from being
Yep.
said. So guess what? He's not going to stop it. It's getting said, and I'm trusting that what you're sharing, is being a blessing, is going to be impacting people, and that's what it's all about. So this is great stuff, and so I appreciate your transparency in that, because we need these kind of conversations. So it looks like Tammy, are we still there? You still with me? Looks like we have a brief little technical difficulty on Tammy's side. She's working that out. She should be back with us in a moment. This is Blessings in the Streets podcast with our special guest, Tammy Taylor, telling a powerful story this evening. Topic of our show, The Weight We Carry. This phenomenal woman is really blessing us this evening. And this is so important that we're having the dialogue that we're having, because it's important for us to know our value, know our worth, but more importantly, know where it comes from. It begins with Him. It begins with God. He created us in a unique, special, perfect kind of way that there's nobody else like us. And so, Tammy's story is truly powerful, and I hope, to my listeners that are tuning in, that you guys are getting these nuggets that she's sharing, because it's so many angles that we can apply these words of wisdom that she's sharing in the sharing of her story, that you could apply right now, that is truly impactful and necessary, if you will, to make it through those challenging storms of life. So again, Tammy's trying to work things out on her end so we can get her back on. Looks like there we go. Tammy's back. Yeah, all right, all right. Can you hear us, Tammy?
I can hear you.
All right, all right. So we got Tammy back. We got Tammy back. Great, great.
Yeah, this is a powerful story. Yes.
Yes. Yeah. See, just when I got going talking about he wasn't gonna stop us, he messing with us again. But like we said, we getting the message out. That's what's important. So we can handle a little momentary glitch. We're good.
Yeah, we're
So
good. Yes, we are good. And that's why I'm so transparent because I know that my story needs to be told. And that I
absolutely.
know that's my purpose. And it took me a while. It took me almost over a year to just be with, like I really had to deep dive and study and just be with the Lord. Like, I didn't men were completely off limits. I couldn't, it was strictly me just trying to be what God wanted me to be, and so and that's what my focus was for a very long time. And then I realized that I needed to tell the story because at this point I'm not the same person I was. I finally saw myself the way God saw me.
Yes, yes. I'm gonna it looks like I'm gonna make sure we're back on record. I know we had a little glitch on your end, and I think it might have kicked us off. I want to
Okay.
make sure we get connected back with our listeners here. All right, all right. We're back here at the Blessings in the Streets podcast. We had a little momentary glitch on our show, so we want to make sure we pick up on our conversation. We're having a powerful time here with Miss Tammy Taylor sharing her story like she is. So we want to make sure we tap back in and pick up where we left off. So again, we're not letting these little temporary glitches get to us because the enemy is trying
Nope.
to stop this story. So we appreciate your patience and hanging in with us as we work through this. So, Tammy, obviously you've shared some very heavy stuff that's gone on in your
Hmm.
life, but the reality is that while some storms can be heavy like that, there's other instances where those same storms can, just be day to day nuances, life and type stuff, where there's somebody getting on your
Hmm.
nerves today,
Hmm.
an unexpected bill, traffic, whatever the situation may be. What I'm curious to know is when you do find yourself dealing with challenging times when you're going through whatever that is that you're going through. What is it? What is your kind of your routine, your regiment that you like to do that kind of works best for you as you try to stay focused and locked in processing and dealing with whatever that challenge is? What does that look like for you when you're dealing with stuff?
Woo. Okay. So, and that's a good thing because the Lord been working on me with that. Because I can handle, like, I know what to do with the big stuff, right?
Hmm.
But it's these little things that would just, I would just lose it. So yeah. So now it's to the point now where I'm like, okay, Lord. First thing I say, okay, Lord, what is this? Is it teaching me something? Am I not? Especially like traffic. I'm like, okay, you protecting me from something. That's the way I do it. That's the way I say you protected me from something. I'm sitting in this traffic because it's something that you got me missing that I don't need to be involved in. So that's how I
Hmm.
get through traffic because Atlanta traffic's the worst. It's some of the worst traffic in the country. So for me, yeah. So that. But as far as dealing with just the everyday, um, I wake up and pray and and I ask the Lord just to keep me in His, just stay with me, because things happen throughout the day, and because I know that I'm walking in this purpose, I know that like God got an assignment for me, and I know it, and I'm walking it. I know that a lot of times things happen to try to derail that. The enemy will send little things to try to derail that because he can't get me with the big things. Because I'm prepared for the big things, but it's if you get enough little things thrown at you,
Hmm.
it can derail you from your focus.
Yeah.
So, and see that right there, like God sent a very good friend of mine to give me that message. So that is why I look at things differently now. I always think now that it's something that the enemy is trying to derail me from what I need to do.
Hmm.
So, and so I was like, not today, Satan. That not today, Satan.
Right.
I,
Right.
boy, I that's one I use quite. I use that quite a bit. I live
Hey.
by it. Not today, Satan.
Hey. I feel you.
Not
I feel you.
not today, Satan. Because yeah, the little things will derail you because those are not what you're prepared for.
Hmm.
The
Yes.
enemy is gonna try to get you any way he can. He know you prepared for the big stuff.
Absolutely,
Yeah,
absolutely.
but
And I like your approach. I mean, I like the fact that you start every day off with prayer. That you're not, you're not sweating the small stuff. You're not allowing it to get you distracted and off track because those things are key when you're preparing for those storms of life. Because if you know anything about the storms of life, we know it's not a matter of if, it's a matter of
no
when.
matter when.
But where's my mindset at? Have I prepared myself in advance? Am I waiting for something to happen and then trying to catch up with my preparation, or am I doing some things that are actively ongoing, just kind of my way of life, the way I prepare my mind, my heart, and those things to where when it comes, yeah, I still because I'm human, I'm gonna still have the emotions or the anger or the frustration of it, but it's not going to get the best of me. It's not gonna take me down. It's not gonna keep me stuck. I'll have my
Right.
moment. I'll pull it all
Hmm.
together, and then from there, I'll move forward and do what I need to do to process whatever it is, this storm, this
Hmm.
challenge that's been presented to me. Because now I'm able to do it with the right perspective, with the right focus, and so
Right.
that's good. I like your approach with that, and for our
Hmm.
listeners, if you don't currently have an approach, if you will, about dealing with those things, what Tammy just shared is an excellent starting point. To
Hmm.
to get you something to start with to get you on the right track so you don't because when you're all emotional and when you're all over the place and you don't have a flow to dealing with this stuff, it will get the best for you, up to get the best of you. You get distracted, which is exactly what the enemy wants, to get you
Hmm.
distracted, to get you, locked in and focused on stuff that don't even matter.
Right.
The little things that you just talked about, and then you'll miss the whole big picture. And in essence, if you come at it the wrong way, something that was real small that could have been knocked out pretty quickly, you've now extended it, made more of it than what it needed to be, all because you're just
Yeah.
kind of all over the place. So
Hmm.
again, I appreciate that. So, so Tammy, if you had the chance to sit across the table from younger Tammy, when you think back of all what life has presented, the time in life when you felt that need to be attached to someone, to something that was that you were allowing to define who you were and what your worth was and the value was. When you reflect on
Hmm.
all of that stuff and just everything that God has shown you through the course of your life, if you could offer some words of wisdom to younger Tammy, some words of encouragement, what would you say to her, as well as what would you say to our listeners who might be going through some of the things that you talked about this evening? Not feeling that worth, not feeling that value, putting their identity in what other people think. Letting social media even dictate,
Oh, yeah.
where they stand and how valuable or important they are, instead of just understanding that they are, much more greater, much more, powerful, much more deserving than what they see themselves as being. What would you say to them as well as to younger Tammy?
The the first thing I would say is you're fearfully and wonderfully made. Um, God made you perfect in His eyes. You know, what you see as what you see as not worthy, God sees as purpose. Um, your identity is not dictated by man. Your identity is through God. God gives you a glow, and that glow is from the inside. Don't ever get rid of God's glow. People will try to steal your shine, but shine is what was a light that's shining on you from the outside. But can nobody take God's glow from you? And it's always there. It never goes away. Sometimes you have to ignite it. Sometimes you have to ignite it. And when you start feeling unworthy, or if you feel like you're not worthy of that glow, talk to God. God will let you, He'll tell you, yes, you are.
Love that. Love that. So important, like you said, to see the light in you that God has placed upon you. You are um, fearfully and wonderfully made. You are one of a kind. You are one of one.
Hmm.
Um, like we said, God doesn't make any mistakes.
Nope.
He created you. He designed you to be exactly who you are. Um, and don't worry about if everybody doesn't understand you, if everybody doesn't see you in
Hmm.
doing the things that God is having you do, because he didn't create you like he created them. They have their path, you have yours. But and boldly walk into that, whatever that is, whatever he has for you, take it all in, embrace it, and and be proud of that. And like you said, know your worth, know your value. Don't let anybody, just because other people, because there are people in life, and I'm sure you can identify with this. There are people in life
Hmm.
who, because they feel small, they want to try to, for them to
Right.
feel comfortable, they got to bring you
They
down. They
bring
got to
you
make
down.
you,
Hmm.
I'm sorry if I'm too big for you. And I don't, and I'm
Right.
again, I'm not talking about the physical. If I'm too,
Right.
if my glow, if my energy and my vibe is too big for you, I'm sorry if that intimidates you, it makes you uncomfortable. I'm sorry. This is
Um,
who he created. This is who I am.
right.
It's
If I'm too bright, put some shades on.
yeah, right. Put some shades on. I'm sorry.
That's
This is what I am.
right.
If
Right.
that disturbs your spirit because you just can't connect with it, you don't understand. What it
Hmm.
looks like when God's favor is on somebody.
Hmm.
Then hey, I get it. I would encourage you to inquire and find out where I'm getting it
What's
from, because there is plenty of it to go
right?
around for you too. But
Right.
but if you ain't ready for that, and then again, remove yourself from the situation, because I
Right.
got I got work to do. I got a purpose
Right.
to do. I got a walk to walk, that he set up for me, and I'm gonna take full advantage of it, whether you agree with it or not, whether
Or
it
not.
whether it meets your approval standards or not, because I
Hmm.
don't have to I don't have to appease you. I don't have to. Your rating system does not. does not
Right,
matter
matter.
over here.
Right.
It's
And
what he
it's,
thinks of me is what's most
right.
important. If I'm pleasing him, then that's at the end of the day, that's all
Hmm.
that matters. So,
Yeah. And
everything that you
comparison.
say, yes.
Yeah, comparison is one of the biggest stealers of your glow. If
Mm-hmm.
you're comparing yourself to what someone else is doing, you really that will quickly dim your glow.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, because they say comparison is the thief of joy, but yeah, and it is. But if you're busy looking in their lane, you're gonna crash because
Mm-hmm.
you're not looking straight ahead. So God has a purpose for everybody. Your purpose is not the next person's purpose. So just stay focused on God. God will, if you don't know what your purpose is, ask God. He will tell you, He will show you.
Mm-hmm.
You probably, a lot of people already know what the purpose is. They just don't want to do it, or they're scared to do it, or they think they can't do it. Because I'm going to tell you, one time, there was a time when I used to say, I'm a model. I don't talk, I walk.
Mm.
I said, I would never speak in front of a group of people.
And look at you now.
Yeah, but I'm gonna tell you something else. About 20 something, over 20 years ago, I was at work and a man came and with his wife came in the office. He walked past my desk, stopped, looked at me. He said, walk past my desk, stop, walk back. His wife looked at him. I looked at him. He said, God told me to tell you that your voice is gonna be heard amongst the masses.
Mm. Hmm.
And I said, okay. And I said it just like that.
Okay.
Okay. He said, God told me to tell you that. And I can't walk out of here without telling you that. God told me to tell you your voice is going to be heard among the masses. And lo and behold, almost 30 years later, it is
Wow.
because of what I was going through. I was like, don't nobody want to hear what I got to say.
Hmm. Yeah.
So, right. So, exactly. God's plan, if God has I'm living proof God has a plan for everybody because Lord knows this is not what I thought I'd be doing.
It's like this wasn't on my to-do list,
Not at
but
all. Not at all. So,
hmm
the words that I say, my book, everything that I do, it comes straight from God. Because again, you know, I was like, God, I don't know how to do any of this. He said, don't worry about it. And I have been able to, God has placed people in my life. He's removed people out of my life, and He's replaced them with people who have put me where I needed to be
hmm
to fulfill what He has for me to do.
it's awesome.
Because and I truly believe it's because they are so obedient to the Lord that they know that God has assigned them to me. They know they're assigned to me. So I mean, this is one of the most amazing journeys. This is an amazing journey. I yeah, and the fact that I finally made it to your show, gosh, whew,
Mm-mm-mm.
that was a journey in itself.
Right, that was a journey, but we here,
We here, yes.
and we making it work out. So we're good. We're good. Wow, wow, that's good stuff. That's good stuff, Tammy. So Tammy, this has been an awesome conversation. We've had to go through a lot of hills and valleys to get to this point, and even in the midst of the show, and again, apologies to our listeners, even in the midst of the show, the enemy's trying to disrupt this
Hmm.
conversation flow, but we made it to this point because it's supposed to happen. You had a powerful story to share. You did it so eloquently, so authentic, so genuine, and I'm grateful for that because you've been a blessing to me. You've been a blessing to my listeners, and I truly do appreciate you being here and having the chance to connect and hear your journey because it's definitely a story that needed to be told. And know that you're always welcome to come back anytime. This has just truly been a phenomenal time spending with you, and
Thank
I'm just
you.
thankful that we had this opportunity to make it happen. Um, but as is customary here on the Blessings in the Streets podcast, before we let you go, I do want to take an opportunity to celebrate you, to love on you, to lift you up. So if you got anything that's going on now or coming up down the road, please do tell us all about it, how people can support, connect, continue to follow you through your journey, through what God has going on in your life, so we can, again, well beyond this podcast episode, stay locked in on what Tammy's got going on. So please share with us, what is it that we need to be knowing about that Tammy's got going on, that we need to be connected with, or definitely passing along to others who need to know about you and what you and the work that you're doing.
Ooh, okay. That's a lot. No, no. My book. I have a. Excuse me. I have a book. It's titled "Crowned in Confidence: A Journey of Faith, Healing, and Freedom."
Hmm.
It's an interactive book. It kind of tells my story, but then it also in this at the same time it gives the reader a chance to journal. It gives them like a push, like for your purpose. So there's some questions in the book. It gives you it's prompts to journal yourself.
Hmm.
So it's kind of like a workbook and a workbook of self-discovery. That's what I like to call it. So it's on Amazon, and if you just go to Amazon, Crowned in Confidence, it'll come up by Tammy D. Taylor. And then I'm also right now I'm about to start a virtual book tour,
Hmm.
and that is put together through Ego Entertainment. And yeah, so it's a virtual book tour. So I'm going to have several stops. And when we do that, those are going to be like podcasts, possibly radio interviews, things like that across the country. And then at the end, we're going to all, it's several authors. At the end, we'll all do a in-person book signing. And I'm not quite sure which city that's going to be in. It'll either be here in Atlanta or in Indianapolis, Indiana. So I'm not quite sure exactly where that's going to be. So that's something we got going on. Um, let's see what else. The Weight We Carry Women's Initiative Inc., which is my 501c3 nonprofit organization, and what we're doing. I'm looking actually to for partners. Well, not necessarily partners, but networking. I'm trying to build a network with other organizations.
Hmm.
Because what our mission is to have women see them. My main goal is to have women see themselves the way God sees them. And sometimes that takes encouragement. Sometimes that takes coaching. Sometimes that takes education. Sometimes that takes employment. So we have our hands. We have several initiatives, and all of them are to empower women. Every initiative we have, and you can go there at www.theweightwecarry.net. And then I have my podcast. I have the Curve Effect. The Curve Effect is about just everything confident and curvy. I'll be talking about fashion. I'll just be talking about different trends and everything confident and curvy, and not necessarily my plus size curvy girls. It's my slim curvy ones too. Like we all have something that we're not happy with ourselves about, and it's my job to make you do away with that. And so that's what the Curve Effect is all about. And I also am a co-host on DL's Backstage Pass radio show, and that is a gospel podcast slash radio show hosted by Mr. Comedian VDL Marshall on the March Media Network on YouTube, which is where Curve Effect is on as well. And then I am also recently become a certified life coach. So I've titled myself a certified empowerment coach. So I do Queendom sessions every 2 weeks, and those sessions are about 7 minutes long. And just a lot of the things that I talk about, things I talked about with you, a lot of those are subjects that I touch on, but I also do it from a coaching perspective as well. And I'm a Christian coach, so I do it from a Christian coaching perspective. So I always leave you with some homework on those, and those are on my YouTube channel, which is Queendom TV. Okay.
Wow. Okay.
Uh,
Okay. All right. Well, wow. I mean, well, we said this in the beginning. I told you guys she got her hands in a whole lot of different things, and you could clearly see, God is using you in so many different ways, tapping into so many different audiences, to empower, to encourage, and doing it from a godly perspective, which I think that's obviously, truly important to add that element into it.
mhm.
So, She's giving you instruction on how to stay connected with her, how to be supportive, how to follow along. There's plenty there for pretty much any of you that are tuning in. And again, if you have somebody that you know that may not have had a chance to be a part of this episode, but you know that they need some of what Tammy is offering, please pass that information on and support and get them connected accordingly. And if nothing more, keep her lifted in prayer because she's got a big assignment on her
Thank
hands,
you.
and it's not always easy to walk that walk. At times you can feel lonely. As the show says, sometimes that weight of carrying that, and the responsibility that comes with pouring into others and meeting them where they are, and helping them process through the challenges and the storms that they're going through. Establishing what their worth is and their value, and embracing that in a proper way. That goes a lot into that, and so
Hmm.
do keep her in your prayers, and I'm just excited for what God is doing in your life, and I'm expecting even more greater and bigger things to come with you. I don't think that we're just getting started when it comes to you and what God is working through you. So it's been a blessing having you here, and I'm just excited for you, and I'm glad that we again had a chance to finally connect, and we'll definitely be staying in touch. Just to
Absolutely.
tap in and make sure that that journey is working out like it needs to be, and like I said, you're welcome to come back anytime. So again, I appreciate you and all that you've given us this evening with your presence and your story. So I'm truly grateful for that, and for my listeners, if you've enjoyed our show this evening, you've enjoyed the stories that have been shared and the impact that has been made, please subscribe, please share, please like, please comment, because this is what the Blessings in the Streets podcast is about. We want to encourage, uplift, empower, doing it in a very transparent and vulnerable type of way, pulling back those layers and letting you know that, hey, we don't have it all figured out. We go through just like everybody else does, but we also understand that at the end of the day, it comes down to who we're connected with. What is that relationship? And we've made it no secret that God is he is the controller of it all. And so if you don't have a relationship with him, today is a mighty fine day for you to make that decision. And I promise you it'll be the best decision that you'll ever make because he's a game changer. You're in a relationship with him. He loves you unconditionally. He wants nothing but the best for you. He's always there to support you no matter what it is that you're going through. He is a true, faithful, loyal person to have in your life. And again, you don't want to do life without him. He will. There's no storm too big for him to handle, and that's what you need. That's the connection that you need in
Hmm.
your life. You don't have to carry that weight all by yourself. You don't have
Amen.
to. He's more than willing to take that up off of you, just because he just wants to show you not only what he's capable of doing, but just how much he loves you. And so, with that said, take advantage, take fully embrace it. There's enough to go around for everybody. Get you some, get it now. Don't wait any longer. And not only will you see the blessings be bestowed upon your own life, but it'll equip you, of course, to be a blessing to so many other people in ways that you never imagined. So, with that said, remember here at the Blessings in the Streets podcast, this is the place where your story is your glory, where your relationships are relevant, and your journey is your joy. And I'm your host, Joseph B. Roberts, and I thank you so much for tuning in. And until next time, keep fighting that good fight, keep leaning and trusting on God. Um, Having him constantly remind you of what your value, what your worth is, in case you slip up and forget. He'll be more than happy to let you know that you belong to him, that you are kings, you are queens. He created you perfectly and wonderfully made in just the way that he wanted you to be. And don't let nobody else tell you otherwise. I promise you, he will not lead you astray. He will not take you down the wrong path. You just got to trust and believe and walk in obedience in what he has for you. And again, just watch the blessings just pour out in abundance in your life, and again through you into the lives of others. So with that said, until next time, you have a great rest of your evening. We enjoyed having you with us tonight, and again, just take care of yourselves, and we look forward to seeing you next time. Good evening.